I'm here today with my September wrap-up. I finished 12 books this month, so it was a good reading month, helped along by the fact that I started a new job at a bookshop. So I had reviews copies to read and also some books to review for the Christmas catalogue. So I finished listening to Owls Do Cry as an audiobook. This is by Janet Frame and is a New Zealand classic. I really enjoyed listening to it, although it deals with some pretty heavy stuff. The first section is about a family in a small South Island town. They're growing up in poverty and it's from the children's perspective. So it deals with the issues of poverty and also with mental illness. I finished this book here, Blazing World. This was longlisted for the Man Booker Prize. It wasn't shortlisted, but the premise sounded really interesting. It's about a female artist who doesn't feel that she gets enough recognition for her work, so she exhibits her work behind 3 male pseudonyms and it doesn't go quite as planned. This is written as though it's a non-fiction book. Parts of her diary, there are parts that are transcripts of interviews with people she knew, and yeah, no, it's a really interesting read. There's a lot about contemporary art, so if you're into that you'll really love this. Otherwise you might learn something. I felt myself thinking, oh, I need to go and look some of these things up as well, so that was really good. The next book was one for review. It was David Nicholls' Us. This was also longlisted for the Man Booker Prize, which was a bit of a surprise because his previous books haven't been literary exactly. So I was curious to read this because of some of the attention it was getting because of that. It was a good read. The prose didn't strike me as literary, but it's very well crafted, and the story was also interesting and the characters fairly compelling. I can see why it wasn't shortlisted, but it kind of fitted within the long list. Then I read Roxane Gay's Bad Feminist, which is a collection of essays on feminism and race. She talks about women in the media, for example, the Hunger Games, and also the portrayal of women in Robin Thicke's Blurred Lines. She also talks about rape culture and eating disorders, and sort of how those things correlate to form the patriarchy. The second audiobook that I listened to was Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison, which is another quite heavy-going audiobook. Maybe I should go for lighter audiobooks. But yeah, it again dealt with poverty, a lot to do with race, obviously. Yeah, it's a real coming-of-age story too. I will definitely read more Toni Morrison, although I might have to pace myself with her because, like I said, it deals with some pretty heavy stuff. So following on from that, I went for something a bit lighter, and that was Fangirl by Rowell. Now, I don't read a lot of YA, but this struck me as one of the better ones that I have read. I'm sure all of you are aware of the plot and the premise of it, so I won't go into that. But yeah, it was nice to see a character in a YA novel that I could really relate to, and I think a lot of people feel that. It's really written for the Harry Potter generation, this book. Then I read The Incarnations by Suzanne Barker. I've done a review of this one, I'll link it below. Yeah, love this book. I finally got round to reading Till the Well Runs Dry by Laurie Francis-Sharma. This has got a lovely cover and it's set in Trinidad. It again deals with race. The 2 main characters are of different descents within Trinidad. Marcia Garcia, who is the main character, the man that she falls in love with is of Indian descent. And the other way that race is really dealt with is when she goes to America, she really starts to notice race in a different way. In a similar way that Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's Americana does. The characters are pretty well fleshed out, and yeah, I'd recommend this. I think more people should be talking about it. Next up I read Margaret Atwood's Stone Mattress, which I don't have here because I had it as a review copy. This was a really interesting set of short stories. I don't usually go for short stories, but it was Margaret Atwood, so and it was a good option for review. The first 3 stories are related, as in one of the minor characters and one will pop up in another, but then the rest of them are standalones. The overarching theme of this collection is aging, which I think she deals with in lots of different and interesting ways. My favourite one was a woman plotting a murder on a cruise ship in the Arctic. and that was really thrilling. Then I read another collection of essays. This is Laurie Penny's Unspeakable Things, also on the topic of feminism. She comes at it from a different angle from Roxane Gay. She talks particularly about the LGBT community and also about class a lot. She's very interested in class. Penny writes beautifully. She warns you at the beginning that this is not a fluffy feminist text, and it certainly isn't, but she still manages to write with snippets of humour, and I think she has a really well balanced argument. There's a chapter in here where she talks about masculinity and men's rights, but I think she deals with it in a really sensitive way, and because of that I think that everybody should read this, not just women. From Laurie Penny's left-wing non-fiction to Hilary Mantel's left-wing fiction. This was the assassination of Margaret Thatcher, which you may have been hearing some things about in the news. This is a collection of short stories. All but the final story had previously been published in other places, but this is the first time that they're all put together in a book. The final story, it was of course the title story, The Assassination of Margaret Thatcher. I defy anyone from left wing or right to read that without having their heart beat a lot faster. Because they were written and published at different times, they didn't have that same continuity that Margaret Atwood's did. The final story is absolutely heart-pounding, even though you know that obviously it's fiction, but you get completely sucked into it, and it's incredibly written. The final book was Station 11. This is dystopian post-apocalyptic drama. It follows about 6 characters from the time that a pandemic hits into the future, about 20 years. The prose wasn't quite as good as I was hoping, and in some ways there were too many coincidences for me to find it believable. So those were the books I read in September. I'm currently reading 2 books. This non-fiction book, 33 Artists in 3 Acts. Also for review I'm reading Mr. Mac and Me by Esther Freud. The Mr. Mac in the title is Charles Rennie Mackintosh, the Scottish artist and architect. So that's what really drew me in. So that's what I'm reading currently. I'm not going to do a full TBR because I've got so many and things keep changing because I have books to read for review and there are so many things I want to read. They're all so if there's an earthquake I will be avalanched upon. Thank you for watching and hopefully see you next time. Bye!